Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to another edition of the Box Seats with Alex B. Smith and Bob Sullivan here on latenightsportsradio.com. Alex, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Watching a little bit of hockey and switching in between that and the Country Music Awards right now. But, it's just getting ready for what's going to be a huge week of football action. We got the College Football Committee releasing their first poll. Some good NFL action. You got full NBA, NHL cards going this week. So it's a lot of stuff. You got college basketball is going to start up next weekend. So this is the busiest time in sports right now. So it's a good time to be a fan, a good time to be a sports bettor.
Did any lines or anything catch your eye with the Country Music Awards tonight? With any bets that you saw, or
you know what? It's interesting. I didn't look up any props for the Country Music Awards. Sometimes I do that for the Grammys and the Oscars. I actually cashed a couple of bets last year on the Oscars. So that's something I always like to do because I grew up with my mom and dad. They're huge music and movie people, so I just always kind of took into that and put that with the gambling sometimes. So you can't really bet them in Vegas. You can find them offshore though. So people who know a little bit about music. In fact, funny story. I don't know if we talked about it on your show before we started the podcast, but during the Super Bowl this past year, I actually cashed in. Most of the money that I won on the Super Bowl was during the halftime with all the Katy Perry props of what song she would sing first and what she'd come out wearing. And I got to know that because I had a couple of friends who went to see her during her tour. She had a world tour going in the middle of that, and ended up making a good chunk of money off of that. So sometimes the world of music and gambling can interact in a positive way.
Well, onto the sports things. The college football playoff first poll came out, and the first four are Clemson, LSU, Alabama, and Ohio State, and then Alabama. Do you agree with this first four? Should we not make a big deal about it? I'm kind of in the way I feel. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Everything will work itself out in the end, and I don't think people should really. Yeah, it's frustrating that the SEC gets all the love early on, but in the end, things will work themselves out.
Absolutely. I think this poll, and I've heard people say it, I think it was done on purpose to have LSU and Alabama in the as two of the top four. If you look at it, they're playing each other this week, and they're coming off of a bye week. So this game is basically now being set up as an elimination game, for lack of a better term. And I think the committee is letting us know that they view that as an elimination game by putting these two teams within the top four to start off their polls. But yeah, no one should make a big deal. Notre Dame, Baylor, Michigan State, TCU, Iowa fans, none of them should be worried based on this opening rankings right now. There's a lot of football to be played. There's going to be 4 more polls before the final one. So yeah, I'm not worried about it. And anybody who thinks that at the same time the teams that are in the top four, they can't be complacent because they're in the top four. Clemson still these teams still have to go out and win ball games. Ohio State, we're going to see just when things are going well with Barrett starting, he's going to miss this game this week against Minnesota because of the alleged DUI stop that he had during the bye week. So that's going to affect them. We'll see. They have to roll with Cardale Jones. We'll see what happens in that ball game. Like I said, LSU, Alabama. That's going to be a real tough battle. That's a game I really like. I actually sent that game out to clients today and put some money on that game. So that's going to be the game I'll be watching this weekend for sure. And like I said, things will work itself out.
Yeah, I feel, and the funny thing with this is it's kind of like when in college basketball, when they come out with do the bracketology,
mm-hmm.
and the final 60, they start breaking down these games and these games haven't even these games are not what's going to happen in the bracket of in the 68 team bracket. Like,
Sure.
they start talking about like how about this matchup? Who would you take here, Virginia Commonwealth or Duke? And it's like, okay. And then once you actually see so they're like predicting who's going to go to the Final Four from these make-believe brackets. And then it comes out on the actual brackets that, it's number one Duke is on one side and Virginia Commonwealth is in the complete other corner.
Right.
But this, with the scenarios that everybody's coming up with, like, oh, well, what do you do if Ole Miss wins out, is the SEC champion, and then you got an undefeated Memphis team? What do you do in that situation? I can guarantee you that neither one of those things is going to happen. I feel Memphis is going to lose to either Temple or Houston, not because they're not better than those teams, but it's going to be tough to beat those teams back-to-back weeks. And then you also look at Ole Miss, where all these scenarios people are playing out in their heads, none of them are going to happen. But that's the genius of coming out with a poll right now, of having, they just want people talking right now.
Right. That's the thing. These are both designed to create dialogue. And I think bracketology is even more fascinating than these polls in college football, because I think the dialogue that's created, at least in my eyes, with the bracketology for March Madness is, contrast of styles and play. There's so many different styles of basketball teams, where we can see, Duke's one of the best teams in the country, but if they play a perimeter shooting team, let's go back a couple of years when they played Mercer out of the Atlantic Sun, they, were, beating them to death with three-pointers, and they ended up, pulling off the big upset. So that's what I take out of looking at bracketology with basketball. But as far as the polls go, like I said, it's a lot of, the polls mean nothing to me really until now. And I at this point, the only poll I'm looking at is the College Football Playoff Committee poll. I could care less about what the AP poll says or what the coaches poll says, because it doesn't matter. Every team, all 25 teams that are on this list, are looking at what the committee says. They're not listening to the AP or the coaches or USA Today or any other polls. So this is the litmus test to use, and this is the time where I start taking poll rankings into consideration with my point spread bets, because you could find some spots where a team, maybe they're reading the newspaper a little bit too hard and seeing this record and seeing themselves climb up, and could a team like Iowa somehow get too full of themselves going into Indiana this week? You made a good point about Memphis. It's going to be tough for them to beat Temple or Houston. They can't overlook Navy in this game this week. Navy's a really decent team. That triple option offense, that's a hard thing to prepare for any defense, and Memphis is not good defensively. So, yeah, they could be in trouble as early as this week. And there's sharp money coming in on Navy taking the points there. It's near a double-digit line last time I checked. So, yeah, that's the thing. Teams can't get too caught up in these numbers, just like the fans. You can't read into everything right now. They're just giving us an idea of what they're looking at, so forth. And like I said, the biggest thing to take away from this opening poll, in my opinion, is literally the matchup between LSU and Alabama, having those two teams in the top four, and the committee basically saying, hey, whoever wins out here, they're going to go on, and whoever isn't, they're going to be more than likely stuck in fifth or lower for the rest of the duration.
Looking at the college football playoff, do you think this is going to surpass the Super Bowl by chance?
In terms of betting handle, it'll definitely be on. I assume it'll be on par with that, because you look at the quality of the teams. I mean, we're talking about some gigantic fan bases, some gigantic alumni, a lot of booster money. You start talking about the Notre Dames, Alabamas, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Florida. The teams that are still in it, they will command a lot of of betting interest for sure. And TV interest as well. Now, you start talking about a team like a Memphis or a Utah, slipping into there, or even a Ole Miss. Then you start, or say a Temple. You start, the TV ratings won't be so well as if it's a all SEC, or SEC and Big 12 or Big 10, so those are things that the committee takes into consideration too. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. There's money to be made on all avenues. So don't think that for a second that doesn't play a role into these final rankings of what matchups are we going to get from a TV point of view, because this is an ESPN production through and through, so they have some influence in that, whether people want to think that or not.
Tom Osborne is on the playoff committee, and TCU and Baylor seem to be always getting screwed in the polls. Do you think it has anything to do with Tom Osborne just being a bitter old man about the Southwest Conference ruining the Big Ten or the Big Eight?
Could be. I wouldn't rule that out. That's why I was very critical of how this committee was put together. I don't really like the fact that there are people who still have deep ties to programs that usually end up being very relevant into the national title landscape. Be part of who gets to play in a national title game. I think it should be a bipartisan group. It should be something completely just clear and devoid of any school affiliation. So if you have writers who are national writers, not beat writers, you have. I didn't quite think Condoleezza Rice was necessarily had the tools to be part of this committee, but I saw where they were going with that, because she's really the only neutral party in this whole group, and having a familiarity, obviously being a politician, with being part of a major committee organization, so that makes some semblance of sense. And she does watch football, but that was the other issue that I had, that many people said with this committee, is that how many games does this group of people get to watch? Do they get to watch Utah play week in and week out on the Pac-12 network? How many times have they seen Memphis play other than that game against Ole Miss? So those are things that we have to take into consideration and really look at, and they never really address that as far as I'm concerned. I don't think they, like I said, I think you should have a group of people who, are I don't know where you'd find them or how you'd balance it out, but
people that didn't graduate high school, because then they have absolutely no college affiliation.
Sure. I mean, whatever it takes. I mean, if you have a group of people, hell, get a group of. I'm sure there's a group of sports bettors. Okay, we're talking about. I could name off a bunch of people that I know that are qualified enough and have watched enough football in their lives and have no affiliation to any club whatsoever that can make a correct assessment using their power rankings and everything that they've watched with their eye test to pick the final four teams to be in the college football playoff.
Looking at the with the college football playoff, and are they? I guess, should we just go back to computers? Like, I really wouldn't have any issue with that. Like, for the most part, other than maybe Nebraska going to the national championship against Miami, and then maybe with Florida State going to the national championship against Oklahoma. I can't really think of too many other instances where the BCS just absolutely got it wrong. With 1 and 2, that's all that matters, in my opinion, with the BCS. And I think, other than really 2 instances, I feel they got it right for the most part throughout that process. So I really wouldn't have a problem with going back to that system.
My thing is this. I think it should be either, if you're going to roll with just 4 teams, then yes, let's start using computers. Let's have a poll, but let's have some computer influence in it. Otherwise, let's go on and make this a 16-team or even an 8-team, but I think 16 teams is fair. Let's have a 16-team playoff. Okay, because this is the thing. As much as I, as a college football fan and a sports bettor, love seeing 37, 38 bowl games of teams where some teams will, go out to Boca Raton or Boise or, Shreveport, Louisiana. One team might be fired up, the other team could give less than a damn, and it creates these great betting scenarios. honestly, even the minor bowl games, as they call them, have been watered down because of that. So, and you have all these instances and issues of schools that have complained about losing money going to bowl games because they're forced to pay for the ticket fees and the travel, and they're not selling off enough tickets, and then they have to pay all these exorbitant fees to these committees that run these bowl games, which is basically a rip-off. So we could compile all of this and settle a lot of different issues within college football landscape by having the 16-team playoff, having a select few traditional bowl games for the best of the rest of the schools, so the teams outside of the Power 5 and Power 5 clubs who had winning records that would elect to go to bowl games and can afford them and not have any hardship, being in a bowl game. Have those be the lead-ins to this playoff system that goes week by week, which has been working in Division I AA, Division II, and Division III for over 30-plus years now. Okay, the NCAA and these schools, they can't BS us anymore about talking about, well, these kids have classes, they have all this and that. They can't go and play these games, 3-4 weeks in a row. That's garbage. Okay, if Georgia Southern and Appalachian State could do that, throughout the 90s and 2000s, I'm sure they could do it now if they were high enough ranking within the FBS to contend for a national title. It's not that hard. Okay,
well, and maybe colleges should rearrange athletes' winter break. In that case.
Sure. Yeah.
Winter break. I mean, that I figure that would, it would piss some people off, but rearrange your winter break, make it another week or so. Like, I feel 16 is too many. I would say 8.
Yeah, 8's reasonable. Yeah, I agree. 8's reasonable. 16 would be ideal, but 8 is reasonable. And like I said, the whole thing it's shrouded in the just the myth and mystery and hysteria that is the NCAA and the hypocrisy that they've put on for such a long time. I mean, if we really, we're kidding ourselves by talking about rearranging classes. Let's be honest about how many classes these players are going to. Okay, like it's not affecting much of anything. So for them to put that out there, they have to, because they have to keep feeding the lie to us as Americans and as people who've attended college. They have to keep feeding the lie of saying that these kids go to class. We know how much they go to class and what they really are doing in class. It's not going to affect them, and I'm sure these schools would rather have the payday of playing 2-3 more playoff games than losing money playing in a meaningless bowl game in the middle of nowhere during their Christmas break.
Alex, week 9 lines, and we're a day late on the week 9 lines and week 10 lines in college football. But what caught your eye this week in the NFL?
It's interesting with both the NFL and college. Like I said, this is the I'm already on 5 games in college football and 1 game in the NFL, and I'm looking at a couple of first half games circled. This is probably the most I bet from a football angle this season, and probably since the middle of last year. There's a lot of good spots here. I feel like one spot that I thought was really interesting was the Green Bay Carolina game. Green Bay coming off of the Sunday night loss to Denver. I was really shocked. I was on Green Bay in that game. They were just completely owned by Denver's defense. Denver's defense finally showed us that they are for real. That it wasn't a fluke. This is a top flight defense that the Broncos have to shut down an offense like Green Bay. But now they head out to Carolina. And the line, I think it's a bit short, 2.5. Seeing some 3s around there. It opened at 1.5, so they were drawing some early money, obviously. Against the Carolina team that has yet to lose, and they played another solid game. A lot of questionable calls and that overtime finish against Indianapolis. So I think this is a short number. Of the 4 undefeated teams left, I still think Carolina is going to be one of the first to lose. I think they could lose this game. That's something that really stuck out to me. The St. Louis Minnesota game, that's another line that really caught my eye. The Rams coming off of a nice win. Minnesota's just been a point spread machine. They're on if I'm not mistaken, it's a 4-game cover streak now. They've been one of the best getting teams against the number in the NFL going back to middle of last season. So there's a lot of good spots here in the NFL and college that I hadn't seen over the last couple of weeks. We talked about how there's just a lot of weak matchups and lines right on the number, but I think there's some value spots here this week.
Yeah, I was the Cincinnati-Cleveland was interesting to me. 11-point. I'm almost inclined. I know Cleveland's going to be starting Johnny Manziel, but 11-point spread on that, and 10.5 in some places. Almost inclined. I know Johnny Manziel hasn't been great, but his last couple, outings, he hasn't been god awful.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Cincinnati's good, but they barely made it past Pittsburgh, and Big Ben looked terrible. I could see I'm intrigued. I'm inclined, especially on a short week, taking Cleveland. Johnny, short notice of playing, maybe goes out there and plays well. I'd be inclined to take them. Yeah. And then the other one, New England, Washington. New England favored by 14 at home. I'm almost inclined to take that because, however, the caveat there is Kirk Cousins has led some comebacks and a couple of bad games he's had. So that game could get out of control, and then Kirk Cousins could put up a couple points here and there. And I think the Denver-Indianapolis game is going to be closer than we think just because of Peyton Manning. I think Denver, keeps it within 10, so the 5-point spread would stay, but I don't see this being a complete blowout, so I would say 5 is probably the right call here. There's nothing really juicy standing out to me this week, again, for like the 5th consecutive week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, with the NFL, like I said, I think the better lines, this weekend are certainly in college football. But I do think the NFL. I think we're seeing some better spots in the NFL, like I said, than we have in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like I said, there was a couple of weekends ago I did not bet one NFL game at all, even on during the Sunday. But again, going back to that game tomorrow night with Cincinnati and Cleveland, that's always a high number to have when you talk about a Thursday night game, standalone game. Like I said, obviously Cincinnati's going to draw some money because they're a popular team right now, undefeated, playing a Cleveland team that's not that popular with Johnny Manziel and so forth. But you look at the Browns; they have covered 5 straight Thursday night games. Cincinnati hasn't covered in this series in their last 5 meetings. So that alone is already making this a solid spot to highlight when you start talking about getting double digits. Like you said, Manziel hasn't been the worst quarterback in the league, in his outings. And, everybody's kind of waiting for these 4 undefeated teams to finally drop a game. So this could be a spot where Cleveland keeps it close to the vest, force some turnovers perhaps. And maybe because this is Cincinnati, we've seen them struggle in big games. Every game from here on out gets bigger and bigger. The spotlight, shines on Andy Dalton. We know how that could be an issue for him. So who knows? Maybe the Browns pull out the outright upset. I wouldn't call for that, but I think 11 points is a little bit high. So I agree with you on that number.
Football, did any catch your eye?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of great spots in college football. Even looking to you look at tomorrow, we got another big Thursday card. Baylor at Kansas State. We talked about the issues with Baylor running their backup quarterback now. Now they're going, it's just true freshmen going into hostile territory in Manhattan, Kansas on a Thursday night. We know Bill Snyder's track record as an underdog is very strong. Since his return back from, in the second stint, getting 17, I'm seeing a lot of 17.5s now. I'd probably be a little more inclined to take the first half of this game with Kansas State. We've seen some opening first half lines getting 10.5. So I think they could hold that close for 30 minutes. Obviously Baylor's offense is still electric, even with the backup kid in there and Stinson. So I would look at Kansas State first half, but Baylor should possibly be able to take over if Kansas State should make a blunder or so forth, and Baylor can stay sturdy on defense. That's a game that stuck out with me as well. Nevada, that's a game that I played and sent out to clients. I'm seeing some 4s, seeing them where it might drop down to 3.5, but 4.5 was the number that I got there. Fresno State is just a pathetic ball club right now. They're 2-6. They allow 41 points a game on defense. They're ranked 128th out of 129 schools in FBS and in total defense and passing defense. So Nevada's that pistol offense. They've got 2 dynamic runners. I don't see how Fresno State even keeps this one remotely close. I think Nevada covers this game by possibly 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns. This is a play I only went 1 unit on, but I was tempted to kind of go a little bit higher, but I've been keeping my unit measurements pretty small and spread out with, like I said, this is the time of year where you want to be really key with money management, because if you're playing college football and the NFL and NHL and NBA and college hoops coming up, you don't want to spread yourself real thin. So you want to kind of really try and consolidate, and highlight just key games. Sometimes it's a good time to fire away. If you're only looking to bet 1 game a night or, a handful of games a week, Nevada might be a game, in my opinion, where I'd say fire a couple more units on than usual. But for me personally, I've just been taking everything 1 unit at a game.
Oh. UCLA. This is no longer the Colorado of the Pac-12 that's going to get dominated by 40, 50 points every game. Mm-hmm. They're slowly getting better, and I see them kind of competing in this game and covering a 16-point spread against Stanford. Stanford's good, but going into the altitude against a team that's actually playing decent. Nebraska, Michigan State only favored, there's one place 4.5, 6s across a lot of boards, 5s. Nebraska being able to keep that 5 or 6 points.
Yeah.
I can't. Is there something I'm missing here? Is Vegas teasing us with this, or what's going on here?
Yeah, this is the line that really just completely stumped me, and I stayed away from it for that same thought process you have. What does Vegas see in this Nebraska ball club to set this line as low as it is? And I understand Michigan State has had trouble covering spreads this year, but Michigan State has been a 3-4 touchdown favorite in most of their ball games this year. I get that Nebraska has lost, the majority of their games with, I think, 5 losses with a combined total of 13 points. So they've been
20.
Yeah.
All the 6 or all of their games within 23 total points they've lost.
Exactly. Okay. So that's and so I get it that Vegas sees that Nebraska keep staying within ball games. But we're talking about they were playing teams, of the likes of Northwestern and Illinois, and then they get blown out by a really, really bad Purdue team last week. I don't see how they picked themselves off the canvas this week to show up against a Michigan State team that's maybe playing a little bit pissed off because they were left right outside of that cusp of the opening 4 within that college football playoff. So that's something to look into. Like I said, the top 10 means a lot now with that poll ranking, because those 5 through 9, 5 through 10 teams, they know they got to show something more to get themselves and launch themselves over a team that's in front of them. So Michigan State, I can't imagine why Michigan State wouldn't come out and dominate this game wire to wire and play as hard as they do minute 1 as they do in minute 60 and easily cover a touchdown, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Before we get into our best bets, another line. Texas favored by 29 over Kansas. I understand, and believe me, I understand because I already put money on Kansas to win 2 games. But and that's definitely not going to happen. But 29 for Texas at Texas still seems steep, considering Texas is not very good. I'm almost inclined to say Kansas will cover this, but I know with my history with Kansas that that's not going to happen. Just stay away from this game altogether.
Yeah, this is just a one to avoid because Texas could play their second stringers and win this game probably 30-7. It's a motivation thing now. You look at, like I said, we're a week away from college basketball. I can't imagine anybody in Lawrence, Kansas is paying attention to this football team right now. They're probably getting ready for hoops starting up in the next week. Texas, yeah, they're still playing for some pride, and Charlie Strong's got this team fired up every week. But yeah, like I said, 35-7, final makes sense to me, which obviously means Kansas gets within, the point, half a point. It's not worth the time. There's a lot of better games on the board this week. This is one to just strictly avoid. If anything, maybe look at the over. Texas could end up running up 54 points on their own. So, but even then, it's like I said, it's a matter of how badly do they want to embarrass Kansas? Because if they get up to a 30, 40-point lead at halftime, I can't imagine where they're going to keep putting the pedal to the metal in this game. They'll probably just rest, call off the dogs. So not worth it. Worth putting any money on this week.
So with that, let's get into our best bets for the week. For the best bets, we'll go. What's your good bet this weekend for college, or really for anything, I guess?
Well, all right, my good bet.
CMA is included.
Right. Well, I don't know if there's be enough time to get anything in by the time this gets on air, but so in NFL, my good bet, I'll go to the NFL. Like I mentioned, Green Bay Packers, coming off that loss, going into Carolina, only laying 2.5. This thing should probably clear through the number of 3 and probably be around 3.5, maybe 4 at kickoff. I do like it at that spot. So I would look at playing Green Bay, laying the 2.5 now. If there's something that other people might like, this would be a great game to put a teaser on and tease it, all the way through and take points with the Packers. Maybe Atlanta would be a good pairing with that. So I'll go on and make that my good bet. I'll say a 7-point teaser with Atlanta at Pick'em and Green Bay getting around 4.5, 5 points would be my good bet.
My good bet week is going to be Monday, San Diego and Chicago. I'm going to say San Diego covers a 4-point spread. Chicago, even with Cutler, they keep stuff relatively close. I still think this is a touchdown difference of a ball game. The most exciting part, though, is Cutler versus Rivers. We don't get to see this too much anymore. This was always a pleasure back in the day when these two would scream obscenities at each other across the field. Well, at least Phillip Rivers was screaming obscenities across the field. That was the best part. So I'm going to go San Diego to cover against Chicago. Your better bet for this week.
One thing to mention about that Chicago-San Diego play, the Bears, the Monday night games, haven't really been the best team. They've tend to come out flat in Monday night games. But when you talk about the Bears playing out west, they tend to play really flat. You look at how they did in Seattle this year, where they had they punted on every possession. Granted, that wasn't Cutler, that was Jimmy Clausen at quarterback. But you look back at last year, a couple of years ago, they played at San Francisco on a Monday night, and they were just dominated for a full 60 minutes. So I think there's a really bad spot for Chicago, so I agree with you on that San Diego play. But my better bet, we talked about with Michigan State. Like I said, 5.5, this line is even at 6. This line is way too low. Michigan State in my power rankings would be at least at least a 12.5 to 13-point favorite over Nebraska. So this is a game. It's a little short. It didn't make my personal card just yet. I'm gonna wait and see what happens. Granted, I might, I'm assuming Michigan State will start taking more money and the number will climb up, and I won't play it. But if the sharp money sees something in Nebraska to where they think taking the points here is a solid angle, like I said, Vegas knows something to set this number within a touchdown. I might be able to get Michigan State at even a lower price, depending on what moves are made between now and Saturday. So I'll give it out right now, Michigan State minus 5.5, but who knows what's going to happen with this number, to be honest.
I'm going to TCU Okie State. This one's going to be a little tricky, but I still say it's a better bet. You got TCU, two teams that are both feeling upset. Both teams undefeated, both probably feeling that they're getting jobbed in the rankings. I feel TCU favored by 5. I think they take it. This is their first time to prove against a team that's a semi-decent team, and I think they're going to have to go home stage to the woodshed. And I think State will wind up with 1 or 2 losses, but this is going to be one of those 2 losses because I think TCU is going to come out and send a message, and I think it's going to be heard loud and clear. Mm-hmm. Okie State, I know, and the line, the over/under for you get 76.5, 77 in some spots. The combination with this one, I'm going to say take the over for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I watched just a handful of minutes in that Oklahoma State game last week against Texas Tech, and it was just absolutely outrageous. The lack of care that was just. I mean, these two teams just simply weren't playing defense at all. They turned this thing into a pinball game, and so yeah, you look at how TCU's defense is played and how good their offense is. This could be a shootout real fast. We could see this thing go over the total maybe at halftime if TCU decides not to play any defense early. Oklahoma State's defense just didn't show up at all. So yeah, this thing could easily be a 42-42 affair at halftime. So the over is definitely something you might want to look at.
Okay, and your bet for the weekend.
My best bet, it's tomorrow night, as I mentioned. This is a game I sent out to clients. Nevada Reno, the Wolfpack, only laying 4.5. There's one spot where you can grab that 3.5, grab it by all means. Fresno State, just not the same Bulldog team we've seen in the Mountain West over the last couple of years. Their defense is absolutely horrible. The Wolfpack, not the greatest team in the Mountain West either. They've lost some games that they should have won. They've had a pretty tough stretch of games at it, but I just don't see where Fresno State can even keep up with this team right now. I think Nevada wins this one big. This is definitely my best bet of the week, laying only 4 points.
My best bet, Philly going into Dallas, favored by 2.5 right now, some threes. Dallas's defense played well against Seattle. However, I don't like Russell Wilson. I've never really liked Russell Wilson, but I don't like him this year. I can't really say Dallas was all, they were impressive on defense last week. They've been impressive on defense, but it was against Russell Wilson. I'm not a particular fan of him. However, they're going up against DeMarco Murray. I think they're going to try to set up their offense to let him go to work on Dallas. And Dallas's QB play. I mean, Matt Castle, probably a great guy, but horrible quarterback. Yep. Brandon Whedon, same way. Tony Romo, probably a great guy, and he's a good quarterback. So I'm going to say Philadelphia goes in and covers, wins by at least a field goal. I can't. That's my best bet. I don't see Dallas being able to. There's no way that they can win, even playing against Sam Bradford. I just don't. I'm surprised the line is this low on it.
Yeah, well, and it's the NFC, a division game, a Sunday night game. Dallas, a public team that always draws money, even with how bad the quarterback play has been. Dallas has still been drawing money at the windows week in and week out. So that is the expectation for it. But I agree with you on there. I think Philadelphia should be a little bit higher than a 2.5, 3-point favorite in this ballgame.
Do everybody, before we get out of here, where we can find you, about your website, revamping, all that good stuff?
Yeah, axsmithsports.com. We got the whole new layout. I've heard nothing but positive reviews. Finally, I do everything by myself. I'm a one-man show here, so all the website design you've seen over the years has been things that I've done and my imagination and so forth over during the summer. But I had a really good friend of mine sit down with me and show me some web design stuff. So I thanked her on Twitter, friend Stephanie, over the last week or so. She helped me really map out everything and make the transition over using Squarespace for the website, so it looks fantastic. Please visit it, axsmithsports.com. Follow me on Twitter at axsmithsports. Talking on there around the clock with all the games and all the action. I'm also at Sports Memo, Vegas Insider, Kelly in Vegas, and Parkla Sports. You can pick up any of my packages there as well. Bob, what do you got going on for the shows this week?
Thursday night. I don't know what. I haven't any guests yet, but we'll get that together in the next. And Sunday night. Again, I don't really know what's going on. I'm a very poorly organized man when it comes to my shows. So, but you can catch that Sunday night. I will be having possibly a former NBA player, Rich Richner, if the stars align,
Okay.
And possibly Adam Cousins from Saturday Night, writer for Saturday Night Live on the show.
Nice. Okay.
But again, if the stars align, then those will be the guests. Otherwise, it'll probably be just me rambling on like I am right now.
Well, hey, that's the thing. Everybody's got to stay tuned and check out Late Night Sports Radio and and see what's going on with the shows for the upcoming week tomorrow and then on Sundays.
Absolutely.